Welcome back. The news in full. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Saturday morning arrived in New York. President Sisi is to participate in the meetings of the 74th round of the UN General Assembly. During his visit, President Sisi is to hold a series of bilateral summits with a number of heads of states and governments participating in the UN General Assembly meetings in New York. President Sisi is to deliver Egypt's statement before the general session of the UN General Assembly. In his speech, the president is to tackle Egypt's vision and its stances regarding the regional and international developments on the international political scene, notably in the field of preserving global peace and security, as well as combating international terrorism and extremist ideology. The speech is also to tackle a number of economic, social and development issues, as well as the causes of the African continent in light of President el-Sisi's chairmanship of the African Union. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassem Radi said that President el-Sisi is to hold a number of bilateral meetings with a number of heads of states and governments on the sidelines of the meetings of the UN General Assembly. The summits are to focus on exchanging points of view regarding boosting bilateral ties in all domains, as well as discussing regional and international issues of mutual concern. Radi added that President el-Sisi is to participate in a number of high-level conferences that would be held during the 74th round of the UN General Assembly with the participation of world leaders. The conferences are to tackle a number of causes and current challenges that face the international community. President Sisi is to deliver Egypt's statement before the summits, in which he would highlight Egypt's stances. As for the Egyptian-US ties, Radi noted that the visit of President Sisi to New York would witness intensive activities. President Sisi is to hold a number of extended meetings with leading U.S. figures, as well as the leading figures of the international American companies and the economic and investment organizations, which aim to increase their activities in Egypt on the backdrop of the investment opportunities available in the Egyptian market. Meanwhile, members of the Egyptian community in the United States organized a rally to welcome President Sisi and to express their support for Egypt and for its leadership, and to express their appreciation of the president's efforts in the field of development.
In an exclusive interview with Egypt News, Egypt's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Mohammed Idris, said that African and regional issues top President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's agenda in the 74th round of the United Nations General Assembly. Idris added that the meetings are a great chance to review Egypt's achievements and economic reform gains. In another interview to Egypt News, United Nations Secretary General spokesperson Stephen Dujarric hailed Egypt's role in serving the African continent causes. Dujarric said that Egypt is adopting an ambitious plan in a bid to achieve development in the Black Continent.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi addressed the 73rd session of the United Nations Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York, United States on the 26th of September 2018. The president first of all appreciated the role played by the United Nations in settling regional and international issues. President Sisi also highlighted the Egyptian vision towards the United Nations with a solid belief in the values and the role of the UN. More details.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi addressed the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly at the UN headquarters in New York, United States, on the 26th of September 2018. Egypt participated in the inception of the organization 7 decades ago, and throughout the 6 terms during which Egypt served on the UN Security Council, the latest of which was in 2016-2017. The President first of all appreciated the role played by the United Nations in settling regional and international issues. The President also highlighted the Egyptian vision towards the United Nations with a solid belief in the values and role of the United Nations. The President said that, in all frankness, we have to admit that there is a flaw in the international system which negatively affects its performance and casts a shadow over its credibility in the eyes of many people, particularly in the Arab and African regions wherein Egypt lies. He said that developing countries can ill afford to exist in an international order which is not governed by laws. There is no doubt that the Arab region is one of the most vulnerable to the dangers of nation-state disintegration. The president added that there can be no way out of the crisis in Syria and Yemen except by restoring the nation state, preserving its sovereignty and government institutions. Expressing support for the United Nations-led political solution in those two countries, he said the same principles applies to the policy in Libya, where Egypt plays a pivotal role in support of rebuilding the state. A year has passed since the adoption of the United Nations Action Plan on Libya, and despite the commendable efforts of the organization in numerous conflicts, including South Sudan, the Central African Republic and Mali, many have fallen short of finding permanent settlements to such disputes. The president stressed that one cannot talk about the peaceful settlement of disputes without citing the Palestinian cause, the situation that is a perfect example of the failure of the international system to find a just solution to such crises. Pledging commitment to sustainable development, the president emphasized the critical need to tackle the financing for development conundrum that can be achieved through the creation of an enabling environment which allows for the free flow of resources necessary for development without imposing any conditionalities. He also welcomed the United Nations serving as a platform for developing ideas to achieve this reform. The president stressed the importance of strengthening partnerships between the United Nations and regional organizations to meet the rising challenges the international community faces at the political, economic and developmental levels. As Egypt leads the presidency of the African Union in 2019, the president added that the Egyptian government is looking forward to strengthening the strategic partnership between the Union and the United Nations. Egypt plans to implement the initiative launched during its membership of the United Nations Security Council, focused on boosting cooperation to counter terrorism and the terrorist narrative. Egypt needs to also address the major shortcomings in the international community's handling of human rights issues. The president said that the protection of human rights will not be realized through media defamation or the politicization of human rights mechanisms, while ignoring the need to tackle all human rights in an equitable manner, including economic, social, and cultural rights on equal footing. He stressed that Egypt has a solid constitutional foundation for the protection of human rights. Major strides have been achieved in the field of women and youth empowerment. Women now hold 25% of the ministerial posts and more than 15% of the seats in parliament. Also, international youth conferences that are held annually in Egypt in November have become a regular forum for the youth to communicate. Egypt is determined to continue to afford high priority to the issues of women economic empowerment and the causes of the youth, science, technology and innovation during Egypt's presidency of the Group of 77 and China, as a practical example of commitment to the promotion of human rights in a comprehensive manner. Egypt, like the vast majority of the world's peoples and nations, has interest in restoring the credibility of the multilateral system with the United Nations at its forefront. Egypt believes that the organization can overcome skepticism over its merits and credibility by restoring the lofty principles upon which its charter was premised and acting according to the priority addressed, which reflect the aspirations of our peoples. The president stressed that only through united actions the organization will reclaim its credibility and world peoples will regain their confidence in a future of peace, cooperation and respect of one another. The president highlighted the Egypt's Vision 2030 project and how it is compatible with the UN's third pillar, which addresses development, calling the UN to support visions on which states can acquire better quality of life for their people.
قصة نجاح شعب عظيم.
The story of a great nation that changed the reality and conquered the impossible, boosting justice a generation after the other.
تاريخ كتبته مصر من زمان.
Egypt wrote history long ago. Realizing and achieving our goals started with building a modern and democratic state. The path of security and peace we started. Long live Egypt, long live Egypt. It's a vision and the beginning of a new era. We have spoken and the whole world listened to us a day after the other. Our flag is rising more and more. Now we are representing a continent with its aspirations, dreams of freedoms, peace and security, equality, sustainable development to Africa and to the whole world. Now Egypt is a regional Arab and African power. Egypt in the United Nations 2019.
Welcome back and resuming our news bulletin. Earlier, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry arrived in New York to prepare for the participation of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in the 74th round of the UN General Assembly high-level meetings. The first day of the high-level general debate will start on September 24th. President Sisi will be among the first heads of states to address the session. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ahmad Hafiz said that the Egyptian participation in the UN General Assembly round reflects the country's pivotal role in the UN bodies along with its regional role in all relevant issues.
American Defense Secretary Mark Esper said that the United States will send a reinforcement